everyone. Welcome to our last module for this J-term class. It was really nice to see all the variety of resources that you have posted in addressing the objectives that we have targeted for this module. Abigail talked about the first objective, the history of gifted and talented education. Various methods of identifying gifted and talented students was addressed by many of you, Megan, Jennifer, and Aubrey. Identification, how do schools decide a kid is gifted, and also the identification within the definitions that you talked about. The objective addressing characteristics of students who are gifted and talented was addressed by Taylor and Delane. I think that Taylor's resource especially was detailed enough to provide a great understanding for teachers and what are some of the characteristics that you might see in these individuals. So I recommend that everybody goes and looks at this resource. Delane's resource also talked about characteristics of gifted individuals. The unique characteristics of other students, like twice exceptional children, and then including cultural diverse students, was addressed by the video from Rachel. This was a great resource. I would recommend everybody to go and look who are these children. Why do we call them twice exceptional? Adria talked about the diverse population with her resource titled Why Talented Black and Hispanic Students Can Go Undiscovered. So this was a great resource as well. And understanding effective curriculum and methods for teaching. This was addressed by Nate, strategies that can be used, and also Ashley addressed some practices that can be used for this population. We have one resource from Brittany that addressed an overview of Foundation for Gifted Education in Wisconsin. This is a nice resource to understand a little bit more about gifted education in our state. And finally, Christine's and Sophie's resources address the issues that are issues related to misunderstandings of ways how to work with these students, and also a misunderstanding about who these students are. So the only objective that I didn't see addressed as much was acceleration and enrichment approaches, and I would like to address these because these approaches are very important approaches, especially when we talk about students who are gifted and talented. As Christine's video talked about the challenges and the myth that surrounds these students in relation to adding more challenging work for these students, it is true that one of the most important decisions facing educators is how best to challenge a student in one or more content areas. Educators can achieve this goal through supplementary aids and services that modify the scope and sequence of the curriculum. As you can see, one of the practices that it is addressed in Ashley's resource is acceleration. So traditionally, programs for students who are gifted emphasize the practices of acceleration and enrichment. Acceleration enables gifted students to progress rapidly and learn at a rate commensurate with their abilities. Early entrance to kindergarten or college, part-time grade acceleration, and grade skipping are all examples of acceleration. In the past, grade skipping was a common administrative approach to meeting the needs of high-ability learners. But this practice has declined because some individuals believe that grade skipping may increase the likelihood of students becoming socially maladjusted. Others believe that accelerated students experience significant gaps in learning because of grade skipping. Researchers, however, have found several beneficial outcomes for acceleration. Among these positive outcomes are greater academic achievement, increased interest in school, and enhanced self-concept. Contrary to the worries of some parents and administrators, when properly implemented, acceleration does not contribute to social and emotional problems. Acceleration may take several forms. Acceleration may focus on one content area, such as art or mathematics, or it may be a full-year acceleration known as grade skipping. It may also mean starting school at a younger age. Children who are reading when they come to school need to continue to improve their reading skills and to enhance their comprehension. Reading may be accelerated in the class with a cluster of children who are also early readers, or the child may join the first grade for the portion of the day devoted to reading. The skipping of a grade will usually be successful if the child wants to do it and if the receiving teacher wants the situation to work well. Acceleration includes taking high school classes while in the middle school or taking College Board advanced placement classes throughout high school. It may involve taking advanced courses via distance learning or may also include early entrance into college. Acceleration is generally limited to 2 years in the typical elementary school program. Enrichment, like acceleration, is possible in curricular as well as service delivery system. Enrichment experiences extend or broaden a person's knowledge. For example, music appreciation or foreign languages are enrichment courses that are added to a student's curriculum and are usually not any more difficult than other classes in which the student is involved. Other examples of enrichment involve experiences in which the student develops sophisticated thinking skills. For example, synthesis, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation, or has opportunities to master advanced concepts in a particular subject area. Some forms of enrichment are actually types of acceleration. A student whose enrichment involves fully pursuing mathematical concepts that are well beyond his or her present grade level is experiencing a form of acceleration. Obviously, the two approaches are interrelated. Although enrichment is the most common administrative approach to serving students who are gifted and talented, also we have to understand that it is also the most abused approach because it applies in name only and in a sporadic fashion, without well delineated objectives or rationale. There are also other problems with the enrichment approach. It is often implemented superficially as a token response to the demands of parents of children who are gifted. Enrichment activities are viewed by some professionals as periods devoted to educational trivia or to instruction heavy in student assignments but light in content. So quality enrichment programs are characterized by carefully selected activities, modules or units, challenging but not overwhelming assignments, and evaluations that are rigorous yet fair. Additionally, good enrichment programs focus on thoughtful and careful plans for student learning and on learning activities that stress higher order thinking and application skills. Adria and Rachel talked about two issues that still, despite best efforts of professionals, remain areas of concern even today. For gifted and talented education, that is, gifted and talented students with disabilities, which was the resource that Rachel posted, and also Adria's resource, which concerns the assessment and identification of gifts and talents in students from culturally and linguistically diverse populations. One more area of concern that has not been mentioned, it is also girls who are gifted and talented. So these are three areas: gifted and talented students with disabilities, girls who are gifted and talented, and the assessment and identification of gifts and talents in students from culturally and linguistically diverse populations. Only recently, educators have devoted their attention to students who are gifted and talented but also have a disability. Oftentimes, the gifts and talents of these students are overlooked and services are focused on the disability only. It is tragic that people with disabilities are rarely thought as possessing any gifts or talents, most likely because of biases, prejudices, and stereotypic expectations that prevent us from seeing their strengths. Just think of all the people who have a disability but they are still gifted and talented. Stephen Hawking, for example, the theoretical physicist. Franklin Roosevelt, the US president, he had polio. Helen Keller, she had dual sensory impairment. She was an author and social activist. Ray Charles, a musician who was visually impaired, and many more people who have a disability but they are also talented and gifted. A student who has a disability but it is also gifted, it is known as twice exceptional learner. These twice exceptional learners constitute a group of children that is frequently misunderstood. A child who is identified as gifted may also have a learning disability, a behavior disorder, a sensory impairment, a physical disability, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. In many cases, students who are twice exceptional are not receiving the services that would allow for the full expression of their potential. In too many instances, their disability masks their gifts and talents, or their giftedness allows them to compensate and achieve at or near grade levels so their disability goes undetected. Either way, these unique learners are not being appropriately served. Nielsen and Higgins in 2005 identified four key elements that must be present for successful programming of students who are twice exceptional. According to these experts, these learners require a continuum of service delivery options ranging from the general education classroom to a self-contained classroom supported by related service professionals, a complex, integrated, and interdisciplinary curriculum because of their unique learning profiles, services and programs that address their social, emotional, and behavioral needs, and instruction that targets their gifts and talents while simultaneously providing individualized special education supports. In conclusion, I would like to add that there is enough evidence that shows that culturally diverse students are underrepresented in the pool of individuals identified as gifted and talented. African American students, like Adria Resource talks about in here, constitutes approximately 16% of public school enrollment, but only about 8% of those in programs for gifted and talented. There are several factors that contribute to the underrepresentation of culturally diverse learners in programs for gifted and talented students. Some of the factors that have been mentioned to contribute to such situation are poverty, test bias, faulty identification policies, conflicting cultural values, teacher attitudes and expectations, rigid definitions of giftedness. To combat these forces, recommendations have included the following: culturally sensitive identification practices, establishing support services such as career counseling, mentors, role models, and so forth, then greater community and family involvement, multimodal assessment practices, including alternative strategies such as peer ratings, portfolios, teacher nominations, and checklists. And also the last recommendation is early identification. In the end, I want to thank you all for such great work throughout the semester. I enjoyed having you all in class. Thank you very much and good luck with your studies.